as you backtrack. Again, I enjoy this game a lot more if this item never existed and you could just get Billy to boost Rebecca. And then we deal with the bat. Now, this could be a very annoying fight, but there is a quick trick to cheese it really quickly with stacking him over and over with a grenade launcher so you can die within seconds. I should know that even when I know how to cheese this one, it seems weird looking back at my footage of why I'm playing as Rebecca here. We have a choice for this boss fight of who we can play as. Hell, you could just leave the room if you want as well. I guess after playing the earlier titles, I'm used to the lady having the grenade launcher and the gent having the shotgun. So if you don't know this little cheese tactic, this fight can be very annoying with all the other little bats flying around. And on that note, let's see how a certain streamer did with this fight. A streamer that before being kicked off Twitch earned the most donation income per subscriber. How did our good friend of the channel, Darkside Phil, deal with this?
Now he's hurt. Fuck this bullshit, suck my fucking dick. Shit. I did it! Yes! Ugh.
Now to note, he got trolled into playing the game on hard mode, which makes this even funnier. No Phil, never change. Oh, and I recently got blocked by Phil on Twitter. He didn't like my WWE Champions tweet. I'm not sure if it's a greater honor to be blocked by Hideki Kamiya or the cockroach of the internet. Descending downward to the lab, this is my favorite part beyond the train. One last use of the hookshot. However, the game doesn't tell you that it's the case. It's not like Keys where it says you don't need it anymore. So if you don't know it, you could still be spending the rest of the game worried about needing it again, so you keep it near or in your inventory. But beyond that, this is another case of splitting the party. You use another service lift to move items back and forth to progress forward. It's a lot like the train at the beginning on that front. In a case of cutscene competence, Billy gets knocked away by one of those annoying little monkeys. As Rebecca will take the tram car to the marshalling yard, and hey, this place looks familiar. Yep, this is already terrifying for getting into here. No, she says there's no point in checking in these areas. It's such a cock tease. I'd love to see some of these areas in this engine, or at the very least say it's locked down instead of there's no point. How do you know that, Rebecca? You know, she could have made some discoveries here with the research that wasn't prevented by happening a couple months down the line. Now Rebecca gets to be all heroic here and take down the tyrant single-handedly. Which brings up one of the largest issues I have with Rebecca's character here. When it comes to plots, there's so much you can nitpick about various areas for good reasons. There's tons you can nitpick about the plot here. I mean, just the marshalling yard here. The geography of how we got here and its location feels a bit off when compared to Resident Evil 2. However, I don't think there's any worse sins you could commit to when writing when it comes to character inconsistency. And there's plenty of that with Rebecca here and in Resident Evil Remake. Hell, for whatever reason, they're also different voice actresses.
I can handle this on my own. And don't call me little girl. Are you okay? Want me to treat your wounds?
If the games were released a long time frame apart, I can understand. There were just under an 8-month window between these two releases. In an interview, Shinji Mikami said he didn't like Rebecca, feeling that she was submissive and not independent. That's not really the case here in Zero. Sure, she did get saved by Billy a couple times and they worked together, but she held her own against the goddamn tyrant. Not just one, but two. Although in the second one we kept Billy around as well. So what's going on in the remake when she's carrying in a hunter? Did she run out of ammo? Does she not understand the idea of item boxes and that dropping items on the ground doesn't work in another mansion? Not having Billy around caused her to lose her confidence? Sure, she went through hell the night before and she's probably not in the best space physically or mentally. And yes, I know this is a moment that's a carryover from the OG version of Resident Evil. So why did Shinji take advantage of this? After all, he did direct the remake and oversaw Zero as well. So why not take the time to make Rebecca a more consistent character? Oh, and why didn't she bring up the Chrysis stuff that happened the night before? I mean, I know there's a lot going on, but talking about the Opera Man, all the research leeches, wouldn't that be good to know? I guess maybe it comes up later. It's one of those reasons that the word unnecessary keeps popping up in my mind in regards to the overall plot here in Resident Evil Zero. The last section here is the treatment plant. I do really like this puzzle of trying to light up all these nodes. It takes a few tries, but not overly frustrating. I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment from it. Eventually get Billy back in a pretty understated scene. You'd think there'd be a bit more fanfare here. Then there's this box puzzle here that took me a bit longer than I care to admit. Now, in past titles, these box puzzles have been mostly filler or fairly brain dead, so I give them credit here for one that took quite a bit longer. A bit more exploration, some puzzles, a few more cases of separation, these stupid frogs.
Mara's healing ability is referred to the technically a severely nerfed version of the medics.
Eventually reach Opera Man, whose surprise
passive
is
skill
actually
back in
Dr.
the first
Marcus.
2 games.
I really cracked up when I first heard him with that voice acting.
Just has some HP skill requirement.
No, you can't be. What's going on?
10 years ago, Spencer had me assassinated.
For this and Remake, they were good voice acting for the most part. They didn't go really into cheesy territory too much, although here it feels a bit off considering they went with a darker tone. That's why I mentioned this opera singing character could have worked in something more lighthearted like Code Veronica or something like Resident Evil 4. But with the darker tone here, it just feels right out of place. Dr. Marcus here, yeah, they didn't really bring their A game with the acting or the plot or his character.
Now I will have my revenge on Umbrella, and the world will burn in an inferno of hate.
Wait, how do I get there?
For what you've done. We'll see which one of us is gonna die.
And then there's this really frustrating boss fight because this is the only one where we have to control both characters. You know, there's a reason that up till now that they've made sure to keep it separate on that front in regards to boss fights. And luckily in the final fight, we are separated again. And with that, we escape. Rebecca heads to the Spencer mansion in the distance, taking Billy's dog tag, telling others that Billy is dead.
Officially, Lieutenant Billy Cohen is dead.
Yeah, I'm just a zombie now. Thank you, Rebecca.
So Billy goes somewhere, probably to the island of Resident Evil characters who just randomly disappear. I'm sure Carlos is there, Sheva's there as well. So that is Resident Evil 0. In a series full of replayability,
I
don't
needed
ever
to go
envision
up.
myself another day after this going, man, I should really replay 0. First 3 titles, no problem. Code Veronica, not my first choice. 4, hell yeah. 5, not as enthusiastic but would. 7, Village, sure, although I could skip the cutscenes in 7. Maybe at this point the formula was starting to get a bit played out, but it's also made tweaks to the formula that didn't really need fixing. Instead of creating a different set of challenges, I end up creating more frustrations instead. I'm always one for developers to mix things up or try out a different formula, and for that I do give 0 props. It's just that these switches did more harm than good. Now, on this channel, I have 2 more mainline titles to cover, one of them being Resident Evil 6, and the other being Resident Evil 3 Remake. 6 is a title I only played for like an hour at a friend's place back around its release. For Remake, I've played the demo, but didn't get really around to buying it until recently. I knew about 6 and its reputation, but also has its fans with its crazy gameplay. So unless I really despise it, I don't see it being ranked lower than 0 at the bottom of the mainline titles. It'd be a little over 2 years later until the next mainline title comes along, that being Resident Evil 4. That was a tale that shook the industry, yet changed the flow of Resident Evil and survival horror for better or for worse for a number of years. Resident Evil 0 wasn't one of those titles. And just comparing this to Remake, which came out 8 months before, there's a stark contrast in the quality between the two. On the plot front, nothing really feels essential or necessary to know prior to the events of the first title. It's a shame that up to now this is only Rebecca's starring role. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this might change with the rumors of Revelations 3 starring Rebecca. I know you love your thumbs up, Rebecca. This gets a so-so gesture for me. Hopefully you get another shot in a leading role again.
I can just auto this. No, I don't have my... Oh shit, this is dangerous.
Even in the subtlest of ways,
But when it comes to the big concepts regarding Tears of the Kingdom story and premise, there has been one game that I've been reminded of since the E3 2021 teaser trailer. That is none other than Skyward Sword, a game that, despite not being the most beloved 3D Zelda, I hold very dear to my heart. In fact, there are so many similarities between these two games that some people are beginning to wonder if Tears of the Kingdom is a retelling of Skyward Sword. But we're not worrying too much about that right now. This video is purely an analysis and appreciation of these Zelda games, and is barely speculative. But I did recently upload a video about whether Tears of the Kingdom makes sense in the Zelda timeline, and that was quite a success, for some reason. So feel free to check that out if you will. Also, big spoiler warning for both the stories of Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom before we dive in. With that aside, let's get into the parallels between these two Zelda epics. Skyward Sword tells the tale of a Link and Zelda who live above the clouds. In the opening of the game, it's explained that long ago, there was a war between the demons from beneath the earth and the goddess Hylia, who fought alongside the land dwellers. The demons sought to steal Hylia's ultimate power, aka the Triforce, so the goddess sent it skyward on an outcropping of Earth, along with the surviving humans of the war. This is where the birthplace of the supposed original Link and Zelda, Skyloft, would be established. Separating the sky and land was a cloud barrier, which isolated the humans that lived up above. The demons were ultimately unsuccessful in their pursuit of the Triforce and sealed away by the goddess. Fast forward to the present time of the game and we see Link and Zelda, who happen to be childhood best friends, and also clearly super into each other apparently. However, following the annual wing ceremony, Zelda is swept away beneath the cloud barrier by a giant tornado, while she and Link are riding their Loftwings. Link swoops down to save her, but fails. That night, he has a nightmare in which Zelda falls into the mouth of an enormous beast. This is what prompts Link's main quest, to find Zelda. He teams up with Fi, the spirit of the goddess sword, to venture beneath the cloud barrier and search for his childhood best friend. At a later point in the game, this is the sword that transforms into the iconic Master Sword, after taking in the 3 sacred flames and receiving Hylia's blessing. During Link's journey on the surface, he learns a number of key points. The giant beast he witnessed in his dream is called the Imprisoned, and is the monstrous form of the Demon King Demise, who was sealed away long ago. Zelda is the reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, and she is being guided and protected by Impa, a guardian from the past, to fulfill her role in maintaining Demise's seal. Meanwhile, the flamboyant Demon Lord Girahim, my personal favorite villain by the way, is on the hunt for Zelda because he wishes to use her body, which carries the blood of the goddess, to revive the Demon King Demise. In the latter half of the game, Zelda uses the Gate of Time to go to the past, in which she slumbers to hold the seal on Demise, until Link is able to destroy the Imprisoned in the present. Link does this by using the power of the Triforce to plummet the giant goddess statue in the sky down onto the Imprisoned. Zelda breaks from her sleep and she's back with Link in her present time. Everything is going oh so well until Girahim pulls a little sneaky on them and kidnaps Zelda, whom he takes back to the past before the Imprisoned was destroyed. Girahim successfully uses Zelda's body to revive his master, the Demon King Demise. But it's okay because after a dope final battle, Link stabs him in the chest with lightning. Link and Zelda are once again reunited, they say their farewells to Fi and Impa, and return to their present time to presumably live happily ever after. Also, their descendants are tormented by Demise's eternal curse of hatred. Anyways, now that we've summed up the tale that is Skyward Sword, let's move on to Tears of the Kingdom. The game starts off with our Breath of the Wild era Link and Zelda, who are also close friends at this point, I might add, venturing beneath Hyrule Castle. Here they find the corpse of our main boy Ganondorf being sealed by an ominous hand with a stone. Unfortunately for them, the seal breaks and the stone is picked up by Zelda. Ganondorf wakes up, breaks the Master Sword, lets all hell loose on Hyrule, and disappears into the depths. At this moment, Zelda falls as the floor breaks beneath them. Link dives in an attempt to grab her, and what do you know? He fails. Luckily, the stone in Zelda's hand teleports her to safety, and Link is saved by the ominous hand, which pulls him somewhere. That somewhere being the sky. Link finds himself on an ancient sky island above the clouds with a broken Master Sword, but also a cool new Zonai arm. He makes his way over to the ancient Sky Temple of Time, where he supposedly transports the Master Sword to Zelda. Spoiler alert, he sends the Master Sword back in time. Yep, after diving to the surface and uncovering memories from the past, he learns that the stone sent Zelda back thousands of years to the era of Hyrule's founding. There she meets the Zonai King Rauru and his Hyrulean wife, Queen Sonia. Zelda learns about the secret stones of the Zonai, which amplify one's special abilities. Zelda herself happens to have time powers. While trying to figure out how to get back to her present time, she learns from Raru's sister, Minoru, that secret stones can be swallowed in a forbidden act called draconification, which sacrifices one's body and mind to turn them into an immortal dragon. But Zelda's not the only one interested in learning about these secret stones. Gerudo Chief Ganondorf has an eye for them, as he believes they might aid him in taking over Hyrule. Ganondorf kills Queen Sonia, takes her stone, and uses it to become, you guessed it, the Demon King. He floods Hyrule with monsters and makes a mockery of Raru and his team. Raru commits himself to one final act, in which he sacrifices himself to seal Ganondorf. At this point in the past, Zelda receives the Master Sword at the Temple of Time, which was sent back in time by Link. After consulting Minoru and learning that the sword would require consistent sacred energy over a long period of time to recover, Zelda realizes her purpose. She swallows her stone, becomes the Light Dragon, and the Master Sword sits on top of her head where it slowly heals over thousands of years. Present-day Link pulls this sword out from the Light Dragon's head and returns to the depths to fight a revived Demon King Ganondorf, with the help of his friends. Refusing to lose to Link, Ganondorf undergoes draconification himself, and we get a breathtaking spectacle where Link teams up with Dragon Zelda to fight Dragon Ganondorf. Once the Demon Dragon is destroyed, the spirits of Raru and Sonia show up and channel their powers through Link to return Zelda to her human state. Link dives down to Zelda and is successful in grabbing her this time. The two have a heartfelt moment being reunited, and Link's quest is officially complete. Now that we've covered the most important points of each game's story, what makes these two legends so similar? I mean, Zelda games typically follow the same structure and formula when it comes to plot and gameplay anyway, right? Well, I think these two games have something more. Let's acknowledge the most obvious similarity first. The sky. The sky plays a major role in both games, and it's the reason the E3 2021 trailer reminded many fans, including me, of Skyward Sword. The main difference between the two games is that Skyward Sword is about discovering and exploring the surface, while Tears of the Kingdom Link discovers the Sky Islands. The concepts are somewhat reversed. Now, if we were to assume these games take place in the same timeline, with Skyward Sword taking place at the beginning and Tears of the Kingdom being at the end, we could sort of see the series coming full circle. Other than the sky being prominent, we also have the theme of strengthening the Sword of Legend. This one's a small similarity, as this isn't a concept exclusive to these two games, but I think it's worth mentioning. The Goddess Sword reaches its full potential as the Master Sword by being upgraded by the Sacred Flames, while in Tears of the Kingdom, the Master Sword reaches its true potential by being bathed in Zelda's secret power while she's the Light Dragon. More importantly, though, is the presence of Fi's voice and theme being present in Tears of the Kingdom, a clear reference and connection to the Sword Spirit from Skyward Sword.
I'll try Alma. I haven't used her
Though,
quite
we
a
can
bit.
look at more significant concepts regarding the stories of these games, such as time travel, a familiar concept to the Zelda franchise. While in Skyward Sword is intentional, and in Tears of the Kingdom it's an accident, both Zeldas travel back in time thousands of years to ultimately fulfill their purpose. As both Zeldas try to find and fulfill their purpose, they are guided by a mentor, or mentors, in Tears of the Kingdom's case. In Skyward Sword, that would be Impa, who helps Zelda fulfill her role as a reincarnation of the goddess Hylia. In Tears of the Kingdom, it would be Raru and Sonia, who not only help Zelda in her mission to return to her present time, but also teach her how to make use of her abilities using the Secret Stone. These mentors from the past also provide guidance to Link in present time. And what do both Zeldas eventually do? Sacrifice their consciousness in order to ensure the destruction of the demon. It's not an easy decision for either, though. Both Zeldas have people that they love and want to spend time with, but neither is sure whether they will ever come back. In fact, Tears of the Kingdom Zelda was under the assumption that her transformation into a dragon would be permanent. It's the care we have as players for these characters and their interests that makes these scenes so emotional. The concept of sacrifice is prevalent in both games. Additionally, there's revival. Not only do Demise and Ganondorf resemble each other quite a bit, even only to return in the flesh and face Hyrule's hero in epic battle. The idea of antagonists being revived is certainly recycled throughout the Zelda franchise, but the similarities between Demise and Ganondorf as humanoid representations of demonic power can't be overlooked. Now, we've talked about both Zeldas and Demon Kings, but what about our two Links? Well, I believe the biggest parallel to Skyward Sword that Tears of the Kingdom showcases
Who needs a defender
Link's
anyway?
love for Zelda. Whether that be platonic or romantic is completely up to you, but hear me out for a second. First off, it's important to note that Link and Zelda's relationship is typically not taken far or written deeply in most Zelda games. There are some exceptions though. For example, Link and Zelda are longtime best friends in the Minish Cap. However, when it really comes to illustrating Link's love for Zelda, no two games do it better than Skyward Sword and Tears of the Kingdom. Both Links set out for an adventure for the sole purpose of finding Zelda. While they receive some guidance in searching for her, their determination stems from within themselves, because of the pre-existing relationships they have with their respective Zeldas. Even after Skyward Sword and Link understands Zelda's bigger role in the overarching conflict and is aware of her safety, he wants nothing more than just to be with her. Just look at his face when he realizes he can finally see her again after destroying the imprisoned. And though Tears of the Kingdom Link may lack the facial expressions, we can still see the similarities in their goals. The primary main quest was never to destroy the Demon King or whatever that corpse thing he saw under Hyrule Castle was. It was to find Princess Zelda. And this quest does not complete once he finds out the truth about the Light Dragon. While at that point he technically knows where Princess Zelda is, he isn't satisfied until she's brought back to her human form at the end of the game, which is when the final quest is fulfilled. See, Link defeated Ganondorf because he had to. If he hadn't, Hyrule would be overrun by evil again. However, he could very well have accepted the fact that Zelda would forever remain a dragon, like everyone assumed she would. But he didn't. I believe that if it weren't for Link's will to reunite with Zelda, Rauru and Sonia would never have been able to channel their powers through him to undo the transformation. That's what makes the dynamics between these two pairs so beautiful.
That's 8? Okay, teka. I really hope the final dungeon introduces something new. Or or adds in a little bit of everything from the previous dungeons. Although I have just been looking up through the walkthrough willy-nilly. I'm still avoiding looking up anything regarding the final dungeon. Because honestly, this was a pretty unsatisfying final dungeon.